Um, thank you guys for joining me. 2 seconds here. Now, vegan Twitch creator. Tweet. Okay, that's Twitter, Facebook. Publish. Pin to the top. Thank you everyone for joining me. Just give me 2 seconds. I know I'm here, but I'm just sharing this across my social media. If you've got any problems hearing me, let me know. And I am nearly there. Shortly. Public Southeast Asia. First. Okay, guys. Hope you can hear me okay. Got any problems? Let me know. Hang on, one more thing. Refresh. Okay, so it's Vegan Friday. Every Friday I do vegan food. Friday here in Australia, Thursday night over in the USA. You guys are a little bit behind me, obviously. So today I figured. Okay, so it's Vegan Friday. Every Friday I do vegan. Sorry. Okay, cool. Right here, should be back. Yeah. So I had some people ask me to do more desserts, okay, Asian desserts, and also Vegan Friday. I figured that would be a good time to do it because the reality of the matter is most Southeast Asian desserts, right, are actually vegan, okay? So if you're vegan and you're struggling or you're trying to cater to vegan friends struggling to know what to make them, you know, in terms of desserts, check out Southeast Asian recipes, check out mine. Today I'm going to do 2, right? And they use some crossover ingredients, which is why I decided on these 2. I'm just heating up my Sunbeam saucepan over here, if you can see it. Thanks for hosting. Yeah, so today I'm doing 2 desserts. One is called Sago Gula Melaka, and the other one's going to be Pengat Pisang, okay? And I'll explain what they are in a little bit. But before I go on any further, just a quick shout out to Lenovo Australia that supplies me with the laptops I use for my live streaming and for monitoring my broadcast. I'm using an IdeaPad Y700 for my live streaming, which is a gaming laptop. I have in the past used my ThinkPad X1 Yoga as well, and that works beautifully as well. So in case you're wondering what you need in terms of hardware for live streaming from your, you know, from a PC or laptop, those are the ones to look out for. Also, a quick shout out to Rode microphones for the microphones I use in my broadcast. And today I'm using a Sunbeam, the tabletop pot over here, okay? It's plugged into a PowerPoint, and I've just got a bit of water in here that I'm heating up. So the ingredients I'm using, tapioca balls, okay? You can see this here. Tapioca pearls, and tapioca and sago are actually very similar, but to me the usage is the same, okay? So look out for these at your Asian grocery store, and they come in different sizes. Some are large and some are small. I buy these ones that are quite small, okay, really small. That's what it looks like. They cost, I think, probably $1 a pack as well, or thereabouts. There you go. And the other ingredient I'm using is palm sugar. I've mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again. Palm sugar is kind of like a generic English term for a lot of different types of palm sugar that we use in Southeast Asia, okay? If you grew up in Indonesia and Malaysia, the palm sugar you'll be most familiar with are ones that come in logs like this, okay? And when they're opened up, this is what they look like, Okay, this one's been used. I've shaved off some of it. Okay, but usually you get 2 of these in a pack, and they're cylindrical logs. And they're made from different types of palm, okay? Some made from coconut, some are made from other stuff. But look out for these, because in palm sugar in Thailand is a different animal. You know, what you commonly know as palm sugar in Thailand is different from these, okay? So this one here is from Malaysia, okay? This one comes in little smaller blocks, okay? Smaller cylinders, but essentially the idea is the same. The hue is similar. They do vary in terms of like how dark or how light they are. Okay, I tend to prefer the darker ones. Just let me see if I can do a comparison here. See the Malaysian one on the in the bag is lighter. Okay, the Indonesian one. This one's labeled Gula Aren, which I quite like. Okay, see it says Gula Aren, and in small print here it says palm sugar. Likewise, you will find, even if it says Gula Jawa in English, it will say palm sugar. If it says Gula Kelapa in English, it might say coconut sugar, but similar palm sugar. Okay. By the way, if you're watching this anywhere else, you're watching it on YouTube, you won't be watching it live, because what I do is the recording gets uploaded to YouTube after the fact. But if you're watching this on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever it is, hop over to JackieM.live, and that's where you can interact with me. You get a chance to win prizes, and yeah, just basically be part of the community, okay? And if you're after the recipes, they get uploaded to my website within usually a couple of days, sometimes a little bit longer. We had a little bit of a backlog. We're just starting to kind of like catch up now, but my website is jackiem.com.au, okay? So with this recipe, very, very simple. You need the tapioca pearls or sago pearls. You need palm sugar, and you need coconut milk or coconut cream. I tend to use coconut cream a lot more than coconut milk, simply because it goes further, okay? Now, I'll talk about the difference between coconut cream and coconut milk a little bit more in a bit. But the palm sugar, first off, for the first recipe, I'm going to dissolve it into a syrup, okay? So I'm going to use this chunk over here and throw it in a saucepan, okay? Okay, you can barely see it, okay? And I'm just gonna add a bit of water to it, and I'm just gonna simmer this until it's completely dissolved. So you'll find with this, you know, I do everything by guesstimating. But essentially, usually if I were doing a whole pack of this, I'll probably put in 2 cups of water and simmer it until it's like a treacly consistency. Just keep in mind that when it cools down, it will actually be thicker as well. So whatever the consistency you desire, before it reaches that, you know, when it's close to it but not quite, turn it off and let it cool down, okay? And if you find that you have cooked it for so long that when it cools down it hardens, just add more water and simmer it again, okay? Because it's very kind of like, you know, it's not that fragile, okay? And usually, if you want to be a little bit fussy with this palm sugar syrup, you can add some pandan leaves to it. Just let me show you what it looks like. Okay, I can't find it. Pandan leaves are these long green blades, right? They grow pretty much wild in Malaysia and a lot of Southeast Asia as well. But essentially, I like to describe it as Asian vanilla. I'm just going to cover this so that it cooks faster. Yeah, I like to call it Asian vanilla. It just adds a nice little fragrance to your desserts and even in some of your savory dishes as well. If you don't have it, then stress out too much. But usually you get a couple of blades. You can buy them fresh here in Australia in some Asian grocery stores in certain Asian communities, right? Well, when I say Asian, communities of Asians that are predominantly from Southeast Asian backgrounds. I'm thinking like, if you don't know your geography, Southeast Asia, when I talk Southeast Asia, I mean places like Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Philippines, okay? Brunei. So those are the kinds of communities you're looking to do most of your shopping from, okay? Because Asian grocery stores is a little bit too generalized here in Australia anyway, because we've got a lot of Asians here from China, a lot of Asians from Hong Kong and that sort of stuff. So your grocery store caters to that particular demographic. You may struggle to find some of the ingredients that I use in my cooking, okay? Something to keep in mind. And then when I talk about when I talk about Indian grocery stores, I know in England, because I used to live there for a little bit. In England, when you say Asian, they think of Indians and Pakistanis and Bangladeshis. In Australia, when I say Asian, I mean East Asians, okay? When I want to talk about Asians from India, I mean when I call them Indians, okay? So here in Australia, we have grocery stores run by Indians as well, and I call them Indian grocery stores, and then Nepalese or whatever, Bangladeshi, and they'll sell different things again, okay? Obviously, there are crossovers, you know, you have very similar spices and all that, but again, you may struggle to find some of the ingredients there that you would find in a grocery store that caters to Southeast Asians. Okay, so let me just move this out of the way and just move this saucepan across. Yeah, and if you've got any questions, just hit me up. The lighting isn't great. It's just, okay, there you go. You see that just simmering away. I'm just going to get a wooden stirrer over here. Okay, it feels really hard, but in fact, other ways to use this is to shred the palm sugar with a meat cleaver or just in a food processor, okay, and that will get you something like this, okay. So this has been fed through my thermocook, which is basically a multifunction cooker, and that can also puree, blend, and all that sort of stuff as well. So I just threw it in there and blended it for a few seconds, and then you get something like this, okay? Basically, pretty much like Asian brown sugar, if you like. So for this particular recipe, if you can't find palm sugar, you can in fact use like the dark brown sugar, what they call demerara sugar as well. You know, it'll lack some of that that nuance. Okay, but the idea is generally the same. So this is just simmering here, and you don't need to do much with it, and it will eventually just completely dissolve. Just let me cover this up a little bit, okay? And I just realized I turned the Sunbeam cooker down to minimum. That will explain why it's taking so long. So first recipe, the other thing I want to do with the coconut cream or coconut milk is you can do this, you don't have to, okay? Back in my restaurant days when I used to serve this dessert, I actually used the coconut cream straight out of the packet, drizzled it over the sago when it's ready, okay? And I'll show you what to do with the sago as well when you cook it, because a lot of people are a little bit intimidated with how sago gets cooked up, right? So I'll show you that. As far as coconut cream, coconut milk, right? Now, when I grew up in Malaysia, we used to use fresh coconut and fresh coconut milk, right? Not so much these days. I'm talking like, you know, I'm quite old. But back in my day, the way we got coconut milk was we would buy grated coconut. Basically, there was a stall in our local market where there was a guy that had like basically mounds and mounds of fresh coconut, right? And we're talking about coconut with the brown husk, okay? And people get confused about how you get coconut milk and what type of coconut you get coconut milk from. You want mature coconuts with the brown husk, okay? Not the green coconuts that you drink coconut juice out of, okay? Coconut water and that sort of stuff comes from fresh young coconut, which has the green exterior. Coconut milk gets extracted from coconut that has the brown husk on the outside. So when you go up to the guy and you say you want some coconut, he'll crack open one, and what little liquid there is in a ground coconut tastes sour usually, so that's not potable. Okay, that's not what we would drink. Like you drink coconut water and coconut juice. So they'll crack it open, and you'll see that these coconut flesh will be a thick, solid layer, unlike the coconut flesh that you get in a young coconut, which would be quite thin. The layer would be quite thin, it will be gelatinous. Okay, mature coconut, the flesh hardens, right? And then he uses a machine and shakes the coconut, grates it, and bags them up for us, and we take it home, right? And to get thick coconut milk, if you look at older Malaysian recipes, they always split it up into how much thick coconut milk you use and how much thin coconut milk you use. Okay, say for instance a chicken curry recipe will say 1 cup of, or they use 1 bowl, 1 cup of thick coconut milk and maybe 3 cups of thin coconut milk or something like that, right? That was our point of reference, okay? And when we talk about thick coconut milk, it meant basically, okay, so this is boiling. I'm gonna throw the sago in here. So that's my sago. Just cut it open. I'm just gonna turn this down a bit and grab a pair of scissors. Okay, so with the coconut milk, and I'm only going to do about half a packet here because a little goes a long way with the sago, right? Okay, and then you want to cook this on a gentle heat. Just stir it up a little bit so it doesn't end up sticking to the bottom of your pan, right? Now, so back to the coconut milk, thick coconut milk, thin coconut milk thing, right? What we do when we bring that bag of grated coconut from the market is that first we put it in a cloth, right? And then we extract what we can out of it without adding anything to the coconut, right? So that what you get out of it is what we would refer to as thick coconut milk, okay? And after you've extracted best you can, you then add water to the coconut, the grated coconut, and then you extract it again, and that's what we call thin coconut milk. Okay, so that's the back in the good old days. If you see any old recipe books and whatever that talk about thick and thin coconut milk, that's what they mean. Nowadays, you don't really see that anymore because now everything's commercialized and you can buy packets like this. Okay, so even in Malaysia, if you go back to Malaysia and you cook with the chefs over there, which I do sometimes, they'll use this sort of stuff. Okay, now. When it says coconut cream here, right, this actually has additives to it to thicken it up, right? But it is from basically a creamier amount of coconut flesh, right? So this has a higher content of coconut fat and whatever in it. But then it subsequently is thickened as well, so that it's stabilized. And when you pour it out, it's a consistently thick mixture, because usually thick coconut milk will in fact settle, sort of thing, right? So this, for all intents and purposes, correlates with the thick coconut milk that we know from our day, but it's produced differently, okay? So it's not like in the factory they don't add water and extract the first batch and call that coconut cream. No, that's not how they do it. They do add water to it, but then they add a whole bunch of other stuff to thicken it up, right? And thin coconut milk is like, coconut milk, right? Though having said that, coconut milk in a packet is usually thicker than the thin coconut milk that we extract with water added to it, right? Now, nowadays, I see a lot of, my problem with the blogosphere is that there are a lot of people who blog who aren't really like on the ground experts, okay? They either didn't grow up in Malaysia or Southeast Asia, or they weren't that closely aligned with the food scene over there, so what they know about Malaysian food or Southeast Asian food is what they learn online, through Wikipedia and all that, which sometimes can be wrong, believe it or not. So I have seen it said online where they describe what coconut cream is versus coconut milk, right? For people who want to make their own coconut milk. And what they say is that you get desiccated coconut or fresh coconut, whatever it is. They say that coconut cream is the cream that rises to the top that you skim off after you extract, after you add water to your desiccated coconut and blend it and then strain it out. They say let it settle and the top layer is the coconut cream, the bottom layer is the coconut milk, and that's rubbish, okay? Yeah, so coconut cream is just basically thicker coconut milk, okay? Because if you let it settle, then what happens is with like any kind of coconut milk / cream that you extract out of desiccated coconut or whatever it is, if you let it sit long enough, it will almost completely settle, so you end up with like water at the bottom, okay? Or foggy water down the bottom and like a thick layer up the top, okay? Because what they're doing, what these bloggers are doing is that they're transferring what they know about how dairy milk and dairy cream are made, okay, into this, okay? And unfortunately that's wrong, okay, because it is. Okay, so this is the completely dissolved palm sugar syrup. You can see it's quite thick here. And like I said, once you let it cool down, it will thicken some more. Okay, so I'll put this aside for the moment. And with the sago, what will happen, just let me turn it down further, is that these white pearls will gradually turn translucent. And what you want to do is simmer this for about 5–10 minutes or so, depending on how much water and how much sago you're cooking, until you see that it's almost completely translucent, but not quite. You can see a little white speck in the middle, okay? And then what you want to do is turn it off, and then keep it lit, okay, for another 5–10 minutes, and you will notice that it will continue cooking so that it turns completely beautifully translucent. I'm just going to turn this down some more because I don't want it to boil too rapidly, because when it does, it will just turn into porridge before you know it. Okay, so you can see it. Okay, so you can see it. See, it's on its way to becoming translucent. So the ultimate product you want to achieve are basically these translucent pearls, okay? So just let me simmer this for another couple of minutes. Now, I'm going to add some, I'm going to actually simmer the coconut cream, coconut milk, okay? Just let me grab a pan. And like I said, this particular step is optional, but just let me rinse this out quickly. Okay. Just let me check on the sago. Little way to go here. This batch of sago, I have to admit, is quite old, so it may not turn out quite as pretty as I had hoped. But let me turn this off and cover it and set it aside. So, coconut cream. Like I said, when I serve this in my restaurant, I used to actually just pour it straight out of I used to basically drizzle the sago with coconut cream straight out of the packet, okay? But if you have time, what you want to do is just simmer the coconut cream with a pinch of salt. Okay, so just adding a pinch of salt. With Asian desserts, right, we like to kind of like balance, counter the sweetness, cut through the sweetness with a little bit of salt in it, okay? So that's what I'm doing over here now. And also by simmering it, you basically extend its shelf life a little bit, okay? Especially if you're using fresh coconut milk. Fresh coconut milk actually does not last very long out of the fridge, okay? Just something to keep in mind. And packet coconut milk as well. Once you've opened it, you need to use it up, you know, in the fridge within a few days, otherwise it'll start to go moldy. And it's not something that I would advise freezing. It tends to curdle, okay? It really depends on what you use it for, but you know, once it curdles, it just doesn't look very attractive. Okay, so this is just the coconut sauce that you're going to use later on. Put this aside. And the other thing that I'm making, like I say, uses similar ingredients as well. So I'm going to, let me just pour the palm sugar into something, because I'm going to use this for something else. Okay. So this is the palm sugar syrup. You can see how intensely dark the color is, and it does vary. Like I said, the Malaysian palm sugar will be a lighter brown color. Thai palm sugar, this is Thai palm sugar, okay? You can see it's completely different. These are smaller discs. Usually when you buy Thai palm sugar, I tend to find that they're quite large, and they're harder as well, okay? So you compare the color and the shape, okay? It's Malaysian/Indonesian palm sugar, Thai palm sugar, okay? And also you'll find that some of these are actually from Vietnam as well. So it would seem that, you know, so far that I've seen, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam use the same types of palm sugar. Thailand uses the lighter ones, okay? But I mean, there are different types of palm sugar in Malaysia, but just basically the most commonly used are these dark brown ones, right? And in Indonesia, sometimes they're called gula merah, red sugar. I don't know why it's called gula merah, but it's basically the same kind of stuff, okay? So there are lots of other different names in it. But I went to Kelantan, which is up north in Malaysia. They have lots of different types of palm sugar there as well, in different shades of brown and even red, okay? And that's the sugar syrup. Let's check how this is going. Okay, it's nearly there. A little bit more time. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to make, right? Similar ingredients. I'm using bananas. Okay, these are frozen bananas. I'm going to microwave them for a minute. So those are frozen Thai banana, not Thai, Philippine bananas. But you can use fresh bananas. Usually you would use fresh bananas. I just happened to buy a big, nearly 2-kilo bag of these frozen bananas, which simplify my life. Because fresh bananas, I don't go through that much of them, and I always end up with some thrown out. Okay, so I'm using these, and we'll see how we go. They're a lot firmer than regular fresh bananas, but it might actually work out for, because we're going to simmer this in coconut milk. Okay, so like I said, very, very similar ingredients, but we're doing 2 different recipes and they're both vegan, so that's the beauty of it. Okay, so I'm just heating this saucepan up again. I'm just going to add some water to this. Some coconut cream. Okay, so this saucepan was used to cook the palm sugar with. So you can see some residual coloring in there. I'm going to add more palm sugar in it. I'm just going to use the ones that were shaved previously. So they're crumbled. You could use the log as well, but I just need to use this up. Okay. And I'm going to add a pinch of salt to this again. So you can see these are actually quite similar, okay? They use basically the same ingredients, except this one has bananas in it, and this one's going to have sago in it as well. So I'm going to throw some of the sago that I cooked in here earlier. Okay. Usually you would just soak the sago, okay, before you throw it in. But since I've got some cooked up here, I'm just going to throw it in now. And I'm going to grab the bananas. So there you go. Just going to slice these up. Throw it in. Like I say, if you can't get the palm sugar, use demerara sugar, okay? Don't stress out. But the key ingredients are basically the coconut milk, the sago, and in this case, the bananas. So you just want to simmer this till everything thickens up a bit and bananas cook through. The bananas are actually pre-steamed, okay? So I've got a feeling they pluck the bananas when they're quite green, and then they steam them and then freeze them. And I'm going to check on the sago. Let's see what they look like now. Okay, they're nearly done. I'm going to leave them for another minute. They're about 99% done. Just basically you want the heat from, I've opened it a couple of times now, so I've kind of ruined it a little bit, but generally you just want to like the heat from the pot to actually help cook it all the way through. Okay. You can see this. Now, there's another variation to this, okay, so because Malaysian, Southeast Asian desserts, like they're, you know, we use essentially the same few ingredients, just the way that, you know, when you're baking, you use the same few ingredients. You use flour and baking powder and eggs and butter and all that. We don't use any of that, but we have our own key ingredients, which are the palm sugar, the coconut milk, right? And a few other things as well. So another version of this that you could do, if you didn't have palm sugar, is just simmer, you can simmer sweet potato and taro, a combination of sweet potato and taro cut into cubes, simmered in coconut milk. If you've got pandan leaves, again, you know, if you've got pandan leaves, you could actually scrunch up some pandan leaves, tie them in a knot, and simmer them with the coconut milk, and it'll just infuse your sauce with a nice like undertone as well, right? And then you can add sugar, and that will be what we call bubur cha-cha, okay? And you can add sago as well if you want it a little bit thicker. I generally leave the sago out of that particular recipe. But yeah, there are lots and lots of ways to kind of like slice and dice this, okay? All vegan friendly. Okay, so this is, I just want to cook the bananas till they're a little bit softer, and then I'll serve them up, and you can see what they look like. Let me just taste test it. I'm going to add a bit of sugar and a bit of salt in this. And it's quite interesting because to Malaysians, we find that palm sugar doesn't taste quite as sweet as white sugar. So sometimes you'll see recipes that call for palm sugar and also some white sugar added to it, okay? Because if you just use palm sugar, you might end up with something that's too brown and too intense, but lacking the requisite sweetness, okay? So sometimes it will say add some white sugar to it. So if you see any recipes that do that, you'll know why, okay? But funnily enough, when I serve my Sago Gula Melaka, Westerners tend to find it like very intense, the flavor, so they associate that with sweetness. So they think it's almost too sweet sometimes, so they might ask to cut down on the palm sugar syrup. Okay. Now with this, usually, if you were using fresh bananas, you wouldn't need to simmer this for long at all. And I haven't put very much sago in here at all. Okay. But because I'm using these like essentially like green bananas that have been steamed, they hold their shape a little bit longer. Okay, so they're still quite firm. But I'm going to move this aside. I'm going to turn it off because it's pretty much done. And move it aside. And I'm going to show you what I do with the sago, okay? Now, sago, ideally you would want to do this over sink, okay? But I'm just going to do a small amount and show you how it works. Okay, so I've got the sieve here. It's got stuff stuck to it. Okay, just let me move this closer. So I've got the sieve here. I've got the pot of sago there. And I'm going to, you can see this? Okay, so this is cooked all the way through. You'll always get one or two little specks of white, okay? So don't stress out too much about them. So you've got this here, and now you want to rinse it out. Wash it out of like the residual starch, okay? Like I say, usually you do this over a sink. Just so you can see this. I've got a few things sitting here that are in the way. Hang on a sec. Okay, so there you go. So you want to rinse this and just use a spoon to just move it around a bit. Get rid of the starch, okay. If you look at the bottom, if you scrape the bottom of the colander, you see the starchy bit, okay? So you want to get rid of that best you can. And this is the residual sago, okay? See how easy it is to make, right? But like I said, a lot of people are terrified of like handling sago. They're always asking, how do you cook it? So all it is bring water to a boil, add the sago, let it simmer gently, stirring it occasionally for about 5-10 minutes. Turn off the heat, put the lid on, and let it sit for another 5-10 minutes, okay, until it turns translucent like this. And then you rinse it out. And now, Australians, surprisingly, I always thought of sago as like an Asian ingredient, but when I came to Australia, Australians remember sago from their own dessert, okay? And when I first started making this, they said that if you want to keep the sago loose, right, there are a couple of versions of this. I used to do this based on the advice of this Australian guy. Basically, to the amount of sago that you end up after you sieve them all through from the pot, right? You add egg white, raw egg white to it and mix it through, and that will make sure that the sago balls all stay like separate, okay? If you see that picture in the top right corner of my screen, well, my right, you will see that's actually sago that's had egg white run through it, okay? At some point in time, I decided, look, you know, really in Malaysia, the way we make this particular dish, which is what we call Gula Melaka or Sago Gula Melaka, it's more common really for the sago to be molded, right? Solid. So basically, I'll put this here into this glass bowl. In Malaysia, what they usually do is let this chill, and then one way to serve it is for them to tip it out and serve it in its molded form. Because once this chills down, this is going to kind of like solidify into almost like a jelly, right? And then basically they will turn it over into a serving dish and then drizzle the coconut milk and pandan palm sugar syrup over it, right? So that, in fact, is the more common way of doing it. But if you do want your sagos to be separate, right, like the Aussie guys say, don't blame me, all right? This is an Aussie guy thing, says to run raw egg white through it, okay? So for those of you who are paranoid about eating raw egg, you can take it up with with that gentleman. That wasn't my idea. Okay, but this is, like I said, one way to serve it would be to now drizzle the palm sugar. Let's see the palm sugar and my sago here. Okay, you can see it's thickened up some more, and it's a very intense color. It's still warm. And the palm sugar will keep for months and months, even unrefrigerated from this point on. Okay, so I'll pour some over here. And then I'm going to put some coconut cream over it. Okay, so this is one way you can serve it. But like I said, you would ideally actually let this chill in the fridge till it's solid. Okay, and then you eat it. Just scoop it up like that. And it actually tastes a lot better than you would think for something so simple to make, okay? So that's your Sago Gula Melaka. And a small pack like what I showed you will go a long, long way, right? And it can only cost $1. A small pack like that will probably feed like 6 people for dessert. So that's a very, very cheap and very economical, and it's vegan friendly as well. Something to keep in mind, okay? Now let me serve the other one up. Okay, so this is the Pengat Pisang. All of this just simmered chunks of banana in essentially coconut milk or coconut cream plus water plus palm sugar syrup or brown sugar syrup, and also a little bit of sago just to help thicken it up and just add some texture to it. Okay, so that's another dessert that literally can take you like 5 minutes, 10 minutes to do. And that's your Sago Gula Melaka. Okay, there you go, guys. Very, very quick and simple one today. That took me less than an hour, go figure. I actually have to go off and cook some food for a family at church today because the mother had to go to hospital because of some complications with the pregnancy. So I might wrap up this. I'm actually going to give them some of this, right, as part of the meal I'm preparing for them, but I'm going to cook something else, so that will take up the rest of my afternoon. Thank you for your time. Don't forget to spread the word. Vegan Fridays, Friday Australia time, which is 12:30 here on Twitch, Australian Standard Time, or 9:30 p.m. this time of the year in the USA, East Coast, the night before, which is Thursday night, okay? And coming up next Monday, I will be not doing vegan, obviously, but yeah, hopefully by then we'll be able to announce the winners of the curry paste that we were giving out over the course of the last few broadcasts. So I'll get Cyan onto that, and I will see you next Monday, same time here. Monday might, Sunday night, USA. Yeah, thanks for joining me. Don't forget, follow me at JackieM.live if you're watching this anywhere else at all, and I will see you. Have a great weekend. Ciao.